You can see here where I've got some of the vining sorted, and these little X's or leaves that are coming from the vine. And I went ahead and decided to do that. As you can see here, there's these little X's on the pattern. And if you look again on the legend, you see that the X also is for color 367, which is the same color as the vine and this back stitching here. So in order to save time, you know, as I'm coming to those places on the pattern that have that same color, I'm going ahead and stitching those on. So instead of doing all the vining and then coming back and putting the leaves on, I'm just going to go ahead while I've got that color on my needle, you know, and while I'm working with it, I'm just going to go ahead and add them as I come to them. And when I've got the vining done, I'll come back and show you that finished. As you can see here, I've got all the vining finished, and I've even put the little pink flowers on the vines where they went. And that was simple in one respect and a little more difficult in another. I mean, it was simple because we were talking about one cross stitch in each spot, and then, you know, just a few little stitches here. But because of the distance between the flowers, I couldn't just like anchor my tail and then stitch one and then move to the next, because that would have left a long string in between flowers and that would have been visible through the cloth. So I had to anchor, do the stitch, and then anchor again, cut my string, and then move to the next spot. And I'm going to go ahead and show you again, because I already got started on the quilt pattern, which this is what the instructions look like for that. And as you can see here, it's a little dashed line in the middle of the square. So again, we go to our legend, and it shows us that that dashed line in the square is 3046, the color 3046, and that is the light beige yellow. So that's where I started stitching, and you can see I fold my pattern up so that it's easy for me, because when I'm stitching I usually hold it like this and, you know, kind of keep an eye on what I'm doing, and it makes it easier for me to see, like, okay, I need 3 square, you know, 3 cross stitches here, 4 there, and so forth. And it's just easier for me if it's folded up, and then I can hold it like that and see what I'm doing at all times. But I'm going to go ahead and get my needle threaded, and to show you again, the embroidery floss comes in what they call 6-ply, which means that there's 6 little strings within each piece of floss, and you have to separate 2 out because all the stitching for this pattern is being done in what they call 2-ply. So now this one I'd already taken 2-ply out of and stitched with, so now it only has 4, but I'm going to separate 2. And what I usually do is separate them like that, and you see it creates a little bit of a Y, and then I just stick one finger in the middle and then pull and kind of guide it and keep it, because you see how it starts to get really twisted, and I just help work it out with that hand and continue to pull until I get the threads separated. So I'm going to go ahead and thread my needle and come back and start stitching with you. Now I finally get to show you how to anchor your thread once you've got some regular cross stitching done, because so far mainly what we've been doing is back stitching. So now that we've got a little cross stitching done, and I'm going to be starting on this side, picking up where I left off, how to anchor your thread. So you just turn your design over, and you're going to simply run your needle under I'm sorry, this is hard to do on camera. Okay, you're just going to run your needle under stitches you've already done like that on the back of them. Push the needle through. And now your tail is secure behind those stitches, and you don't have to worry about making any knots. And earlier I talked to you about when you're doing your cross stitching that all of your stitches that are in this diagonal direction are going to be your underneath stitches, and all the stitches in this diagonal direction are going to be on top. And in the back stitching and in just smaller amounts of stitching like this, it's not as noticeable. But when you have more solid bits of stitching like this, it would be very, very noticeable if you had some of the stitches in this diagonal on top and some underneath. It would really distort the look of your pattern, and it would be very, very obvious in this kind of solid block of stitching like this. So that's why you just really want to get in the habit and choose whichever works for you. It just happens to be how I started with this pattern, that all the stitches in this diagonal are either on top or bottom, and all the stitches in this diagonal are either on top or bottom, and then you stay consistent with that throughout your project. So I'm going to pick up stitching where I left off. I can right here, and then referring to my pattern, I can see that I need three cross stitches on that row. So I'm going to go ahead, and this is the way I work. Okay, so I'm going to make my 3 stitches, and I always look on the back to make sure that I don't pull my thread too far and pull my tail out. Okay, so I'm going to do all 3 stitches, or half of the stitches. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I do all these diagonals in this direction first. So there's 3 of the half of the stitches done, and then what I do is come back the other direction and cross them. Okay, and that completes those 3 stitches. And it keeps, again, that pattern where all the underneath stitches are in one direction and all the top stitches are in the opposite direction, and it keeps that uniformity. And what I do is refer back to my pattern, and I can see the next row, the next row I'm going to be doing 4 cross stitches, and I'm going to go ahead and do those, and I'm going to continue to work in this middle section. You can see in the middle of it there's a flower, so I'm going to continue to do my yellow in the middle, and then the other 2 corners are in yellow also, and I'll complete those. And that's just kind of the way I work when I'm working in you know, a small pattern like this. I'm generally going to try and work, you know, all of one color, and then I'm going to switch to the next color and work all of that color and continue until I've got the pattern done. For me, that's just the easiest way to work, but of course you do it if it works better for you to, like, say, to do this top row first and, you know, keep changing colors, then that of course is your decision. That's just what works for me. And when I switch to the next color, I'll come back and show you.